about the simplest thing I can do.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, here for the Seattle Electric Vehicle Association meeting. Please gather around. We will be starting shortly. That sounds like you did it by design.
I know my email address.
Today is the 11th. 6/11. And I don't see our special guest yet.
The same problem Judy and I have with
Got a tip here. Who is our special guest?
What do I see about my email?
John Rizzo, Staubli Connectors.
My email address.
Your email address is what?
It's not correct.
Is not correct. You should be able to.
No signal. Okay, we're good to go. Lindsay's fixed. Okay, order of operations. Ryan.
I think they got a new TV, Jack. Give me a moment.
So where is Windsor, California? Is that LA? I know where Sacramento is.
I do know. Kevin, would you like to announce this?
Sure.
We'll continue with the tech. We're at 7:07.
Oyez, all persons having business for this August body drawn near you will be heard. The Honorable Jay Dunway presiding, all rise, all set. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Cryer. While the AV committee continues with last-minute requests, I want to call this to order. Thank you all for coming on a day with many competing priorities. And we are still expecting, there we go, special guests. We'll have some neat toys to show us shortly. We are beginning our summer of events. This is the last meeting before the Greenwood Car Show. And unfortunately, I will miss it this year. I'll be down in Austin, Texas, hopefully getting a Gigafactory tour in addition to attending a veterinary conference. And we also have some recent events to report on. Teaching the rednecks what for in Moses Lake on the sand dunes, led by Lightning Ryan. And he went viral. Stephen Johnson cannot be with us this evening, but the video of his Ford Lightning on street tires beating the Cybertruck across the sand dunes had already made it to Dearborn, Michigan, and the assembled engineers for the next Skunkworks Sport project were very excited to hear he was the driver. So thank you for helping Stephen in his career. We love shepherding that along. We also will have a little report from Abby of the Bakke Coffee Museum regarding an upcoming Cars and Coffee event. Yeah, come on up, Abby. And we have a guest with us from Staubli Connectors. You may remember years ago, they did a presentation about their advanced pin and sleeve connectors, primarily for DC fast charging and AC, and he actually brought one of the megawatt charging system inlets and connectors that we can look at, and is the first manufacturer to pay serious heed to my plea for vandal-resistant charging cable sets. So we're working on ideas for that. Do we have any other items that would like to be added to the agenda this evening? Nothing that hasn't been previously mentioned? Okay. Abby, go ahead and give us an announcement.
Okay. It's very quick. Some of you might remember that last year we hosted a electric cars and coffee as part of the Baki Museum, and so we want to do it again this summer on July 20th. So I just wanted to let you know ahead of time about the date. This time we're going to host the event at the Coffee Museum, so we can try and get more people into the Coffee Museum as well, so we'll have less space for cars. But we would still like to have some unique conversions to show off, and we'd love to have SIVA's participation so we can try and get more people involved, more people aware of SIVA. So I'm going to work with Jay and Raleigh to facilitate that. But if you have a car you'd like to bring, or if you'd like to participate in some way, just let me know or let Jay know. It'll be during the day, probably around like 10 to 3. We haven't totally nailed down the time, but we're going to be promoting it at the Greenwood Car Show. So I hope even if you don't end up bringing a car, that you will come and enjoy some free coffee and the Coffee Museum and some cars, and hopefully we'll get some new people interested in SIVA. Thanks.
What was that date again?
July 20th.
July 20th. I regret I will not be there. I will be at my sister's wedding in Colorado on that day. July 20th.
We're up. Come on, start narrating.
If you cast your eyes upon yon screen, you will see the beginnings of the adventure in Moses Lake 2 Saturdays ago. It was only 2, or was it 3? Two. Time has been packed recently. But there is Stephen Johnson's daily driver Ford Lightning towing an electric sandrail built by none other than Rich Rudman. Well, rebuilt, electrified by Rich Rudman. And Rich claims no responsibility for the mayhem that ensued. Next, please.
You're in charge.
I'm in charge. An illusion, as always. There is Rich with his creation. I believe that was shortly after or immediately before. It doesn't matter. He broke the rear axle. So he's pointing at the axle. He took it's just an air-cooled Volkswagen dune buggy that they had cut the half shafts of the independent rear suspension, sleeved them with a piece of pipe, and welded the ends. And as soon as electric torque was applied to that in a turn, zing! So it didn't flop around, it was contained within the pipe. But he was unable to execute a friction weld, even though he attempted mightily. Back onto the trailer with it. Heading out. See the suck truck. Using the Magic Docks. I used the Magic Dock with a Rivian on that trip successfully. Though we had one of them that the locking pin would not disengage. We could not remove the adapter. That's the only glitch. I forget the name of this gentleman. His Rivian was fully kitted out, complete with a refrigerator banging around in the back as he flew over the dunes with great abandon.
And this was his end of his many months long excursion about the States.
Oh,
He was on his way home.
he was finishing up a United States of Circumnavigation.
Yeah, camping.
Okay. Yeah, that Rivian looked at it. It had actually been camped in, and it had every imaginable accessory screwed, glued, and otherwise added to it.
Extended his trip by a day.
The lineup, as we were watching the officially sanctioned sand drag races, which were just absolutely insane, and the volunteers at the starting line, they were real men. They didn't wear a face shield or even a dust mask as they ate pounds of sand every time somebody hit the low pedal. Up, back at the way station, zooming around the dunes, the happy driver lining up against the Cybertruck as he's about to beat him. And Ryan flung that Cybertruck on day 8 of ownership, was it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. With wild abandon, so much wild abandon that his carefully festooned Ring doorbell cameras that were met at,
Yeah. There it is. It's
you can see one sticking
the
up.
camera sticking out of the hood.
Yeah. So he hit a little bump in the dunes, the camera fell off, and it was perfectly aligned. You can see the truck driving off into the distance, and within 30 seconds, another truck streams by and buries the thing in
Same
sand.
truck.
Oh, your own truck.
Yes.
And then he fruitlessly drove in circles trying to pick up the Wi-Fi signal again, and the camera was lost. Yeah, doing donuts.
Had a good run.
Camera sticking up. And now this guy, who throws even more sand, aired down his tires. And it was really interesting how we captured the passion of the rednecks when we were sand drag racing. As we went around for another one, guy with your Markian hairiness comes up to the window in his muscle shirt, and I'm telling you, man, you got the torque, you got the power, you just need to air down, and you'll beat him next time. And Ryan says, well, you know, the service center told me the minimum PSI I should run on these is 34, and I wouldn't want to spend any rubber off the rims. How am I going to get home? Well, you got air compressors. Oh, I have an air compressor in the back. It was not a fruitful exchange, so we continued to frustrate the spectators. There's the drag race. Lightning beating Rivian. More in the dunes. You get the flavor of it. He did not air down. Oh, the Ford did. He was down at 20 PSI on street tires.
I was only down, both Cybertrucks were only down to 35.
Yep.
That was the difference.
And it looks like
we were
right.
told that at 20, they had successfully broke the bead while drifting.
He had additional data to support his decision, if you ever doubted that about Ryan. No, Ryan is not waving a Trump flag there. It's some other emblem, but most of the flags there were Trump, only possibly outnumbered by the Mexican flags. But it was like a truce at a watering hole on the Serengeti. All the warrior tribes came together to drink. They were blaring their theme songs as they drove past each other, but there was no internecine violence. Come on. That's the end of that batch of photos. We didn't take pictures of the others, which were a thing to behold, but you'd have the whole family of 4 riding on an ATV, every kind of creation imaginable, but there was some level of safety. People weren't flying blindly over the tops of the dunes because they know somebody might be stopped on the other side, and I don't think anybody died this time, unlike years past.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And didn't even see any real collisions, saw a few near misses, but it was
That was my greatest fear, was running over a kid on a quad.
running over a kid on a quad, because there were,
Looking out.
you know, little girls on tiny quads and pink jumpsuits just going off by themselves, mixing it up with the lifted Jeeps and, you know, maniacs and Cybertrucks and all sorts of sort of things.
The kids were in helmets.
Kids were wearing helmets. All right. Any questions about Moses Lake? Yes, sir.
Maybe you get sand in places that they didn't want to have any sand. I imagine it got
Like the finish line. So when I left the dunes to go to the supercharger at under 20% state of charge, spent an hour there, I pulled out the air wand on my air compressor, spent the entire hour blowing air out of the interior of the compartment, and out of the seams and the windows and the joints. Yes, there was sand.
And the truck was super clean by the time Ryan crashed my daughter's graduation party on Saturday and commenced to give ludicrous test rides to all the party guests. And the loquacious younger daughter of one of the guests was so impressed that she's now gone on 2 dates with my son, so he thanks you. We have a convert, yes. All right. Who can talk about Greenwood? As Raleigh is not here.
I can talk a little bit about Greenwood. Okay, so Greenwood, you saw some chatter about, is it canceled? No, it's not canceled. There was some snafu with the parade. There will be no parade, but the car show is on. We've added the sign up for anybody that wants to bring a car. There's a link to the sign up for for SEVA members in the calendar. So just open the calendar invite, the link is in there, not invite, but the calendar date on the website. If you go in there, you'll see two links. One is to the sign-up sheet, and one is for the car show itself, if you want some more information. Yes?
Also through the CMO unit, right? That's what else I
You see, we posted it on the sheet.
Yes, same link, different source. Yes. So Raleigh is the man in charge. He's out on vacation today, but he'll be back. The club will be covering cost for coming ashore for all club members, and otherwise it's going to be very similar to how it's been run in years past. I think that's everything I know. Any questions that I will not know? Yes.
How do you know which card you'd like to get?
How do you know which?
Well, like I have a bolt. I figured it's 100 bolts.
We want at least one bolt. We want one bolt, and you can have that spot if you want.
Having a way to show.
Don't know that we have one signed up yet.
Because you know
Still early in the sign-ups.
Right.
But right now, there's no visibility for anyone to see who's actually
Figuring it out.
So if you click on the link to register, you should be able to see other responses.
No.
You don't see the responses?
It only lets you edit your own entry.
Okay. All right. We'll see to it that you can see what else is coming. So I'll get to work on that. Other questions, Mark?
There still has to be some planning for people who have to drive their cars there on a trailer, tow vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And in years past, we met on the south end of Woodland Park off the Woodland. That still has to be Woodland.
Okay.
Upper Woodland, okay. So that still has to be specified in a meeting time for that time.
Got it. All right. We'll see to it that Raleigh knows about that.
Yeah, they all tend to go down at one time.
Question I didn't make last year, but the location and the entry point, I'm interested in figuring that out.
To be announced. I think last year it was new. Anybody remember what
It
happened
was on the
last
south
year?
and
Yeah. Bill? We will ask Raleigh to distribute a map.
so do we know the cutoff date for when you need to register for SEVA to be able to pay?
I have not heard a cutoff date yet. No. Yes. Grace.
Hi, sorry, I'm over on the side. Are we doing an information table or booth this year? And so do you need me to bring some equipment like in past years?
We have not talked about a table. I guess it depends on how many cars we have. One thing that we do have this year is everybody will have a small flyer to put on their windshield that invites anybody who wants information about SEVA to scan a QR code, and they'll be able to fill out a form and request information on membership to be added to the email list and anything else they want to tell us about themselves.
Yeah, we should do an information booth for sure. There's plenty of room to put some. And I would encourage people, if you haven't signed up, sign up soon. We need to make some payments, and we need to get some stuff to the car trade.
You know what the cutoff date's going to be? Do you know?
It's always been like pretty soon. It's not like it's the end of the world, but we need to tell them. We need to show them some progress and tell them roughly how many people we think is going to be there. So
Got it. Okay.
they can't do that.
Yep. All right.
And keep in mind, everybody, don't pay for it online yourself. See what will pay for it, just sign up on the sheet. And Raleigh or Rob will make the payment directly, right?
Yeah.
Make a lot simpler. But you do have to do it online, make sure you put SEVA in as the organization. Otherwise, you'll be somewhere not associated with SEVA at all.
Yeah. We want to roll as a posse.
We need a place to put our banner too. We figured out where that's going.
It'll probably be on that table that we're gonna set up.
Oh, we are gonna do it, okay. Yeah, like we did last week.
Got it, okay.
This is the value of having ex officio board members present for meetings beyond their retirement because they hold the rest of our feet to the fire. Thank you, Grace.
Institutional memory.
Before institutionalization. But SIVA is recognized as one of the long-standing car clubs on the Greenwood Show registration site, and many times we have been the largest car club in attendance. And for that, we get a little extra consideration to drive in as a group and prime real estate in the middle of the Greenwood Mile. So I want to make sure we do get a good representation this time around. Any other events that need mention before our July meeting? Big one. Greenwood's the big one. Haven't got any other small ones coming up. Okay. Mr. Risso, are you?
Unless anybody's going to Portland.
Which show in Portland? You're not talking about the Formula E races that had the temerity to schedule over the top of Greenwood, are you?
That's the one.
That's the one, yes. Formula E is happening in Portland. And Electrify Everything is coming in late August, is it? Up in Vancouver, BC?
The one in Seattle is Electrify Expo is the 14th and 15th of September at UW.
14, 15 September at UW for the Electrify Expo. In the back.
Yeah. He is looking for volunteers if anybody wants access to lots of interesting stuff.
Oh, you get a t-shirt?
Get in for free and get on it.
Okay. Please hold your hand to get more information from this gentleman in the back for volunteering at Formula E in Portland the weekend of June 29th. Free t-shirt, free admission. You're a VIP. Mr. Yormark.
Charlie and I are going to be part of Return to Renton on July 7th.
Return to Renton? You live in Renton.
Right.
They have a car show in
Car
Renton.
show called Return to Renton.
Oh, it's a car show on July 7th?
It's about half the size, about a third the size of Greenwood.
Okay. Do you want additional cars? Do they have a limit?
No,
Do they have a Focus?
No, just pay you $30, that's all.
Any car can pay $30 and return to Renton on July 7th. Okay.
So the mail-in form for Greenwood is a week prior to the event.
Mail-in deadline a week prior to the event. That would be June 22nd. We've got a few days to handle it as a club before that. Very good. Okay. Mr. Risso, are you ready to show your toys? Sure. Excellent. I would like to introduce John Risso of Stowbley Connectors, who makes really advanced connectors, including simple, reliable, probe-style connectors that you can connect a ferry boat at over 1 megawatt of power and not have a robotic gantry crane on a finger pier waiting for the ferry captain to crash into. But that's another topic entirely. How you doing, Joe?
Oh, thank you. So hey everyone, my name is John Risso. I'm here from Stowbley Electrical Connectors as a field engineer. Actually a member of the SAC EV Association out of Sacramento, where home base is. Oh, sure, yeah. There you go. Feel like a Ghostbuster. So happened to be in town. I was talking to Jay. He said, "Hey, we've got a meeting. Come on, swing by." So figured I'd stop by, say hey, share a little bit about MCS. So this is the megawatt charging system. It's currently in development as part of the Charin Task Force. They're developing it. So the thought here is over 3 megawatts of power in hand. So as you know, the 1/4 megawatt Tesla superchargers, it's quite a bit more. Right now, this one will do 1,500 amps, so a little over 2 megawatts with it. And this is something that we've been developing for a couple of years, working with a few other manufacturers in the group, making sure that it's standardized. There's a lot of interoperability tests right now in Cleveland, Ohio. They're testing at the Lincoln facility. So Lincoln no longer makes welders. They also make EVSE cabinets, which is pretty exciting. So they're getting into the charging game. They're hosting a lot of events. And I just got this delivered to my living room last week. Figured I'd throw it in the trunk and see if I could sneak it on a flight, and made it through TSA. So it's here if anyone wants to check it out.
They just didn't want to argue with you.
This one is liquid cooled. So there's a couple different levels of it. There's a 1500 amp, a 3000 amp, and a little bit lower amp. So the lowest amp is not cooled, or the lowest amperage configuration is not cooled. The version that you see here is cooled on the infrastructure side, so on the charger side, and then the third version, which will be 3000 amps, is cooled on both the vehicle side and on the infrastructure side to prevent overheating and all that other fun stuff.
But how does it stay put? There's no latch.
So this actually has 3 actuators around the inlet that 3 different configurations that it can take. So depending on what the vehicle wants to do, they can have 1 actuator, 2 actuators, and those will be mounted on the sides here that you see. But yeah, so this is kind of the next level. The thought is probably not going to be for your sedan. It's looking at class 6, 7, 8 commercial vehicles, machines, vessels, ferries, trains maybe. A lot of stuff going electric. Stauble's been doing electrical for years and years. Recently we kind of did a restructure to focus on mobility, so I'm stoked to be able to get back into the industry that I love. I spent 6 years designing utility trucks for a company, so now I get to be back in the automotive side with electrical, so it kind of combines my personal life with the electric cars, and then the work life with the structural and mechanical kind of pushing the limits. So that I bring this in if anyone wants to check it out. We've got this out testing with some partners. You may have seen it at ACT. So WattEV has big charging stations for commercial vehicles. They had this on a charger at the event. We debuted this at CES, kind of this new version. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Does this support bidirectional charging?
I believe it does. I'd have to verify on that and see kind of where they're going with the standard. Yeah. It's got direct contact. We're actually looking at indirect cooling. So this will be a water glycol mix that has the liquid cooling separate from the electrical process.
When you say oil, is that mineral oil?
I'm not sure.
It's worth $1 million, so drop it.
Yeah, I promise I'll bring it out. So. But when you actually look at it, compared to say a CCS1 connector, the CCS1 is about the length of one side. So it's, considering the amount of power it does, it's not that much larger. When you compare it to an ACS, it's considerably bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
With cruise ships at Seattle's cruise terminals, does anybody know what their capacity is?
So their store power, I'm not certain, but I think it's at a 6.6 kV, and this is only at 1500 volts, so a little bit lower. I don't think this would work for that, but it would work possibly for tugboats, electric tugboats, ferry applications going from island to island, island to mainland, stuff like that.
Have you talked to Skagit County yet about their electrification program? They're trying to put out bids for a new ferry to Williamson from...
I've not, so if you've got a contact, I'd love to meet him.
I don't have a contact, but I live a block from the ferry, and I get the emails from them saying, we're out for bids.
Oh, okay. No, I'll definitely need to look into that. Yeah, right now we actually, so as Jay mentioned, we have an automated charger that we've had out for about a decade now. We developed it for buses in France. They were using supercapacitors to go from bus stop to bus stop prior to battery technology being where it is today. Obviously, the supercapacitors are not the most economical, so that kind of fizzled out, and it led way to, the battery tech is catching up, the motor controllers can take a little more power, and the inverters and everything. So we have, currently, we have an automated pen socket that's being used for mining applications, a lot of terminal and port operations. So we just installed chargers at Port of Long Beach in Southern California. There's 33 chargers for the yard trucks. So their drivers can go around, do their shift, get out of the seat, it automatically connects and charges. They don't have to lift a finger. They go on their way, have their lunch, come back to a charge vehicle. So we've done that in a lot of port applications. It's being picked up in mining. And for the mining application, everyone's got 2 megawatts is plenty. It's not enough. So towards the end of the year, we'll be, we kind of let it slip a little bit at Electric Mind that we're pushing out a 7.5 megawatt automated connector that'll be fully touch protected but fully automated. So you don't have to get out and connect it. You just set it on a stand, let it do its thing with the vehicle. That'll be cooled as well. And that's going to be used for mining applications and other heavy machinery applications around the world. So that's kind of an exciting side for Staubli, but we're really well known for the higher power, for the solar industry. Prior to our Staubli acquisition, we were multi-contact. So if you've done any solar stuff, you know the MC4 connector. The MC is our multi-contact, so that's a little homage to our name. So we've been around in a lot of the renewable industries for quite some time, and we're kind of shifting our focus to add some support to the auto. Yeah, so thank you for letting me join your group tonight. It's pretty cool. I keep missing all my local ones because I'm traveling too much, so this is great.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
I see we have at least one out-of-towner with us from Vancouver Electric Vehicle Association, who had probably the best booth at the Fully Charged show in Vancouver last year, complete with their classic, the 1912 Detroit Electric, indeed, that they run as a club for many years now. Converted back to the original chemistry. Nickel iron batteries, Edison iron. You built them. Great boxes, excellent. Any announcements for the good of SIVA from Viva?
Having our meeting tonight. That's all they've gone on to Zoom now.
They're entirely virtual.
I kind of like what you're doing, having personal meetings.
We like the personal touch ourselves. We do not currently have a hybrid option for SIVA, but we poll folks from time to time about their desire for such. All right. Well, again, Viva had a strong presence at the Fully Charged show, which is now rebranded as Electrify Everything, to be held in Vancouver again. Phil has been pestering them about the possibility of a Seattle event. There's not that many people. I can testify there were only a handful of Washingtonians in Vancouver for that event, and then we would also do well to get the word out at Electrify Expo.
When is that?
The date of Electrify Everything in Vancouver, is that front of mind for you, sir? Nope. The date of Electrify Everything in Vancouver.
Well, that's in September. I think it probably might be it'll be the first Friday, Saturday, then Sunday.
First 3-day weekend of Vancouver. We will look that up and send it on to the list. All right. Well, we had a great car show to kick off the meeting on the roof of the garage. If you can catch it before you go, there's still a Cybertruck and Mark's white Tesla Roadster and a few others up there. Thank you for bringing out the Roadster and 2 Cybertrucks. Who had the other Cybertruck? Oh, yes, ma'am. And it hasn't rusted yet?
It hasn't, and it's rained on it.
It's rained and it hasn't rusted. That's really great. Have you cut any carrots on the hood or lost a finger? Okay. Yes. Well, the Cybertruck is real. It's running around, and I've even seen them in the wilds of Graham South. So it's slowly winning converts. Anything?
Nuggets.
Nuggets. Our dutiful data master has been working through the SIVA member survey and has some more nuggets of wisdom and insight to share as soon as we can work the TV.
As soon as you get it figured out, they go and get a new TV.
That's a new TV?
Yeah.
What'd they do to the old one? I want it.
Everything Electric is September 6th through 8th.
Everything Electric, September 6th through 8th. Is that at the Expo Center?
Yep, Vancouver Convention Center.
September 6th through 8th. That is where I first saw the Edison Electric semi-trucks, which, if you've watched, they have taken off in the past year online and are building a universal pickup truck retrofit while still moving along with their super tough logging duty semi-truck, which is a heavy hybrid. Big battery, small engine, only doesn't need the engine except for extended range, extended duty. Very impressive build by some truckers rather than tech bros.
Which one are you trying to do, HDMI 1?
Aw, shucks. Any Q&A while I do the soft shoe? Ma'am, in the corner.
If you guys can hear me, I was just reading a short while ago, Inside EVs had a report about how many EVs have been sold. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Inside EVs had a report
Inside
on
EVs.
how many EVs have been sold. And
I'll just do that.
And they looked at globally, and I think we're at over 1.2 million in April. 1 month, 1.2 million electric vehicles sold. That includes plug-in hybrids, okay? Not just fully electric, but plug-in hybrids too. But compared with April of last year, 25% more. So all those people out there saying, yeah, the demand has crashed, nobody wants electric vehicles, that's a total lie. You know, the oil company's doing it once again. So I love to have stats like that from the real world to tell people, yeah, the demand is not going away. So 25% more in a year is what we're at now. Yeah.
And in a mind towards having stats like that, I wanted to let you guys know that the board is begun discussing the possibility of professionalizing SEVA. Years pre-pandemic, we talked about it, and consensus was not to yet and continue on our way as a merry band of volunteers. But as the industry grows and the amount of information to sort through on a daily basis grows exponentially, we have seemed to be developing consensus that we can't stay abreast of it or be an effective advocacy organization, let alone a lobbying organization, as part-time volunteers. So we're investigating the possibilities of hiring a part-time director and the attendant fundraising and other obligations that would entail. But we look to examples such as, who knows Cultura? Cultura, not exactly a SEVA spinoff, but started from scratch in 2014 by local lawyer Matthew Metz, sometimes SEVA attendee. They did a couple of curious events, like hanging a trapeze artist in a snow globe full of smoke. I seem to remember a picket at the Seattle Center Shell Station that they don't talk about anymore, but their slogan is, you know, they want to eliminate gas cars by 2030, and they now have a budget approaching $300,000 a year, supported by 10 major foundations. Matthew is you know, full-time on the effort, and they're getting real traction with their gasoline super users. You know, they issued a report, and then what do you know, PhD students are building upon that work on their own volition, and they're really taking off. So if you have any thoughts on the professionalization of SEVA, we'd like to hear them online or email members of the board directly. Are we ready, Rob?
We are ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I apologize for the rough presentation. We had a nice deck prepared for you, but there was something was lost in translation, so we had to go back to the original source. So let me just make this a little bit more friendly, maybe? Okay, that's a little bit more friendly. All right, so I have data from 3 of the survey questions here for you. The first one is annual miles driven, and that little yellow slice represents the 20 to 30,000 mile segment. But the big takeaway here, of the 70 or so respondents, the annual mileage was 10,000 and below. So that's the big blue chunk there. And then 10 to 20 is the next biggest group. There's one hardy soul that's driving their EV 30,000 miles a year. So cheers to that. Next up is daily mileage. This one's a little cleaner. Let me give you a little bit more zoom on that puppy. Okay, so as we can see here, a fairly good spread, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 5 to 10 miles a day on the drive. With about 4% of people doing some more hardy commuting at 50 to 100 miles a day. And then the last slide, how do you drive your EV? Personal errands, biggest chunk. Commuting and long distance trips, taking up a good substantial part of the responses as well. A couple of business drivers out there also. And those are the nuggets for today. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Rob. And we had that mention of the Guaymas Island Ferry and Skagit County's electrification efforts. Who's familiar with the Mount Vernon Library Commons project? Some of you may be deserving of a presentation. They got $12.5 million of federal grant money. They're building a new multi-purpose library, community center, retail center surrounded by new apartment developments. And the thing is opening with 72 level 2 stations on the roof of the parking deck, sheltered by solar panels, and 4 DC fast chargers with room for more. They're running conduit for 200 electrified stalls. They plan on 24-hour usage of those charging stations by the nearby apartment dwellers and trying to coordinate that with daytime business use, et cetera, et cetera. It was put together by the outgoing mayor who, as soon as she got out of office, she went full-time into that effort and met with her recently. She wasn't up to speed on the DC fast charging standards and the coming changes involving NACS and the equity issues about ensuring continued CHAdeMO access, and is now focusing on that to make sure that all are accounted for in this project. But Skagit County is really coming along. If you saw the University Place Library Commons project of about 2010, 2012, it was a white elephant in that town, and the council was ridiculed for shooting for the moon back then. But of course now it's surrounded by really nice restaurants and retail and very active and fully occupied. And they put, I think it was 8 or 10 charge point stations there, which is why Tacoma EV Association met there for a number of years. And of course, those are fully occupied now. Yes, sir.
Is the library going charge point for the network also?
They are going with the yet another network that has no presence in this region yet. The Juicebox network. They're putting 72 juice boxes out, and they have a chance to go with an existing network, but they weren't aware that they chose a hardware provider who has no network presence around here. Yes, Bill.
Anybody have any idea of the number of those level 2s that will charge you even when the network is down and the cell phone doesn't work?
I would highly recommend visiting level 2 charge point stations in this area. I'm doing battle with that company and doing my best to fire them right now because of their ineptitude and refusal to provide customer service. Hope you're listening, ChargePoint. you know, the stations originally deployed with 2 and 3G modems that we upgraded modems on barely 2 years ago. Those modems are now failing. And when the modem fails, the customer doesn't know unless they audit their bill and see that that session never showed up. But the screen says, thank you for charging with ChargePoint. You will incur $4.61 of cost. But the host never gets paid and the customer never gets billed. And ChargePoint's only solution is buy a new Series 5000 pedestal for $5,000 plus. Yes, it's very, very ouchy. And they've yet to propose a really good solution. I've got another call from their salesman to return, but that's the state of the industry. And I had several meetings in the past week regarding vandal-resistant charging cables. You may recall show and tell of the prototype we armored at Tacoma Power, which was level 2 cable with stainless steel braid as a sheathing, and then glue light and heat shrink to keep it in place both before and after a cut. Well, I'm somewhat happy to report that a vandal cut and removed its unprotected sibling, but then their hand shears apparently jammed while cutting the armored version of the cable, and they abandoned it after less than 30 seconds of attempting to cut it and ran away. So the deterrence factor may slowly take effect, and Stoubley has some ideas about hardening their cables. Also in contact with a company, had met with their president yesterday, called Catstrap. They sell hardened steel, basically leaf springs to wrap your catalytic converter with, along with braided steel pressurized tubes of dye. So if you penetrate said tube, you get blue dye all over your face, or hands at least. And they're very interested in the possibility of armoring some DC fast cables thusly. We even talked about just putting the dye in the coolant of the liquid cool cables, but that would take a whole lot of engineering decision. And looks like Flow Chargers is going to warrant Tacoma Power's retrofitting of a couple of 50 kilowatt cables with metal braiding of our choice, as long as we ground it inside the cabinet, etc. Clark Public Utilities did this over a year ago after they had 2 cuts in the first 3 months of their DC fast charge station, and they haven't had a cut since. But we visited Tacoma Mall today, and the yellow caution tape wrapped around the cut tables has been there so long that it's turned white. Those stations are effectively out of circulation. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea why this is happening? Is it just people stealing the copper?
Stealing the copper, yeah. The legislature, in its wisdom, passed a bill declaring EVSE cables to be protected commercial metal property, just like manhole covers, and scrap dealers can't buy it. But if you strip the insulation and all the markings off of it, then it's just a pile of copper scrap that anybody can sell. So it was window dressing on the issue. And anything added externally, like RFID tracking, tags, transponders, etc., they'll last until the wire gets stripped. And even last time we had a cable stolen at Tacoma Power, security followed him up the hill to the edge of the property and then said they went west on 35th Street. Thank you very much. Bill.
So a while ago, I took a trip to Portland. And
Why would you go to Portland? That place is like...
Children.
Okay.
And, I went to the security at Fred Meyer, and then the 3 cables cut, and they said, well, we don't own it, but we'll give you the sheriff's office. So I thought the sheriff's office, he shows up. He said, the person who owns the device must report it, or our detectives will not take it as a case, which means it belongs to Tesla. And I don't think at this point they're necessarily reporting these things, but they could.
Yep, and we have to be activist shoppers, informing our hosts. I love to shop here, but your charging stations have been inoperable for a while, and I found someplace else that has them, so I'm shifting over. Walgreens would be a good recipient of that message. They're original Blink CHAdeMO fast chargers have been offline since August of 22. And they just sit there still, no replacements. Many of them still powered up, but disconnected from the network and therefore will not operate. And Walgreens hasn't responded to outreach through all the usual methods, corporate website, LinkedIn, phone calls, that kind of thing. But I can report that like the Elmer's restaurant on Hosmer Way in Tacoma, Red Light Central, they had their V4 superchargers cut shortly after deployment, and today they are all repaired and online. So even without a supercharging team, somehow the repairs get done. Was that all always outsourced anyway?
No.
No? Okay.
Well, Tesla has slowly started hiring employees back for the supercharger team. I don't know if any of the local supercharging team got hired back yet.
Okay.
Because I sent them out to Electrify Era.
Electric Era Technologies, yes, and the State Department of Commerce has notified all the people who got conditional awards last year that if the voters do not turn back the Climate Commitment Act in November, then the Solar Plus battery storage grants will be funded. And like Tacoma Power has 90,000 riding on that for a study for battery buffered EV charging. But that is coming to the voters. It's something that CEVA might consider campaigning a little bit around, preserving the Climate Commitment Act and all the attendant EV-related funding. Oh, last other item of business. I testified in Seattle City Council meeting, committee hearing last week on the transportation bond proposal. And we supported the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. The original proposal had $10 million for EV infrastructure. I'm not sure whether the proposed increase to $30 million is part of the current package or not, but IBEW had several speakers in support, and I tried to support the proposal, but asked that City Light not build their next DC fast chargers under a bridge next to a homeless camp, because that's the state under Spokane. Yes.
I noticed the 3 superchargers that are around where I live down on Queen Anne.
Yeah.
Green Bay, Holman Road, they all have all their wires cut.
Yep.
And so, but they all put one back. That's all the rest of them.
They repaired one cable.
Yeah, one cable, all of them have one cable.
Well, probably pandemic shortages.
One pedestal,
Yeah.
2 cables. No CHAdeMO.
Yeah, no CHAdeMO put back. Second-class citizens.
So I was wondering, is that the plan? Because they haven't been used that much anyway, so one probably the rest of it.
I don't see an overall plan, and most of the utilities don't want to talk about it. If Sprinker Rec Center in Spanaway, anyone familiar with that? It's where Tonya Harding trained as an Olympic skater, and where my daughter skates. And they just installed, I believe it's 16 brand new Blink Level 2s. Blink has stopped deploying their Level 2 Square second generation equipment that had the same error-prone touch screen as the first gen equipment, and now they seem to be exclusively deploying the SEMA Connect design that they bought and just put a new Blink sticker on it. But those are at the far end of the parking lot near the rock climbing structure, which we call Makeout Mountain, because it's non-access controlled after hours. And I talked to the county planners who had just finished this beautiful parking lot build about security, and they did move the blinky light police camera installation trailer further down in the parking lot to try and keep an eye on those cables, but I'm taking bets on how long they last. All right. Any other announcements for the good of the order? You've been all so quiet and patient. Mr. Grunkmeyer, our resident traveling celebrity speaking on grid continuity and resiliency.
I was curious about NEVI funding.
there anything that anyone's been tracking here in the state about any levy grants?
There's a webinar tomorrow on people who didn't get funded the first time around, taking the proper steps to submit for reconsideration this time around. We're in the problem of too much happening at once, and I sense fatigue on a lot of the organizations that would be running these grants. I've been a minor part of a tri-county collaborative to submit a NEVI project, and we even cooked up a hybrid proposal. Okay, it's not a corridor grant, it's not a community grant. We'll do a corridor of community centers, libraries. We'll try to double dip in both categories. Not the best level 2 location, but Puget Sound Clean Air Agency says we don't have enough bandwidth to run this grant for you. And the utilities say there's too many strings attached to these federal monies. We don't want to mess with it. So some of these grants may be funded just because not very many people applied, and everybody gets some who applied for some, and I predict we will see poorly designed projects going forward.
You touched on an interesting point. There's a lot of money made available, but it's not entirely clear everyone's actually going after this in the right way. Oregon has a grant for reducing carbon and know where to look.
Yeah, opportunities out there. Hopefully they won't micromanage projects this time around. Department of Commerce did so in a project that I inherited, and I am on the verge of being ordered to rip out the equipment that was installed 3 years ago at a cost of $200,000 in state grant money because the EV service provider was unreliable, and we just need to buy new revenue grade equipment from somebody else. And that project was micromanaged by inexperienced state staffers who pushed a shotgun marriage between a hardware company and a software company that had never worked together. Brian?
Yeah, so I chatted with some people at the Department of Commerce. I wanted to propose a statewide demand flexibility marketplace for EVs, but regardless of that, it seems like there aren't that many skilled, knowledgeable people with a lot of depth in commerce, and even fewer in the UTC. And so we've got some.
Did you see the salary ranges they were advertising when those jobs were filled?
No, was it like 20K or something?
It was 50 to 60. So they get fresh graduates who cut their teeth in those jobs and move on after a couple of years. Phil?
I wish for a nationwide one-page application that is not filled out by the staff.
That would be Steve Forbes and his 3x5 income tax return, and that failed. Well, we've got some time to talk amongst yourselves. Sorry we didn't have an extensive program prepared. It's been very busy on all of our plates, and
if you have not already signed in, please do. Still a reminder, we have this lovely space because we agree to provide the fine folks at Rivian with our contact information in exchange. So just a reminder of that.
But why haven't they spammed me? I haven't gotten any marketing material from Rivian in months.
It's okay, I get enough for both.
I'm on this.
Phil's got something to say. And Ryan, did you have enough to say about your Cybertruck experience, or do you have more? Okay.
Yeah, what's happening with the EV museum that draped our table so graciously? Well, how much money? Where do we send it? What will we do with it?
There's a barcode, $25, sign up once and you start getting.
Scan the barcode, learn more. Okay, and let's sign up for Cars and Coffee, July 20th. Abby, will you forward a sign up link to the list?
Yeah, I'll communicate with Molly and
Mark.
All right, in Vancouver, Electrify Everything, September 6th through 8th. Greenwood, June 29th, cut off a week, absolutely minimum a week earlier than that. So by the 20th, this being the 11th, let's say you got one more week to make up your mind about Greenwood and return to Renton. What date was that, Mark?
The 7th of July.
The 7th of July. And noteworthy, you will be able to see the infamous Corvolt on the 7th of July. I had the privilege of a ride in it this afternoon with Mark, a date I thought might never come. I rode in the Corvolt down the highway, and it was quite an experience. It currently has Dallas Cowboys for a color scheme, blue and silver, but he tells me that will change. Yes, but Corvolt is running. Yes, sir.
Is the Super Cobra Jet 1800 in our area?
So,
It's electric.
Pat McHugh did tell me that he got permission from Ford to bring it to the Greenwood Car Show. So that will be probably your best opportunity to see that car. That's the plan. I think he was going to try to contact some folks. Well, he wanted to be sure that he had some extra space around the car, and as long as we can accommodate that in the SEVA area, I think that's. Yeah, that's I believe the plan. They'll have the car there, and Pat will be there to answer questions and show people around the car.
Can I get that 1 second? If you go now to the club calendar, there's a link to the registered cars for Greenwood.
Great, thanks.
All right, and thanks to Larry for finding a good home, being my solar tiny home, for his XS10 battery pack, one of those Cal 100s being on display right here. I pledge they will be soaking up solar electrons sometime this summer. And speaking of other unicorns and rare sights, today Tacoma Power got delivery of its first Silverado EV, which should have been named the Evalanche, but we're actually putting a truck that uses the driver's back seat as the headache rack when you're carrying oversized loads into commercial fleet service, so I wish us luck. But it's here, it's real, and it's got the mileage to get those skeptical hydro workers that are only 70 miles from headquarters confidence that they can make the trip in the worst of conditions with a full payload. So little steps, little steps.
Just curious, do we have any connections with any Irish EV associations?
The Irish EV Association?
Yes, I'm doing a research project with Electricity Supply Board that runs a power grid for the entire country. And we're trying to recruit drivers over there. We've got room for 500, got about 250 signed up right now. And I'd love to figure out if there's any other ways to get more people to participate.
I don't know about the Irish EV Association. I will try to investigate and ask those of you present to do the same. Perhaps a little investigation.
Is there an Irish Tesla club? I used to have a contact in Ireland, one of our Tesla customers.
Mr. Phil?
There's been no mention on Father's Day, vendors on Front Street, the 16th of this month.
Thank you for that reminder.
You can sign up even now, and we will last 6, 8, 10 cars.
Vendors on Front Street, Issaquah, June 16th. Coming right up. And Silent Scott, any news from the island? No news from the island. Oh, things I would love to talk about but can't. Okay, well that's it. Please, shall we put away chairs for our hosts?
Yeah.
Let us do that. We stack them against the brick rather than the drywall. Don't want to mar anything. Thank you all.
Teresa, I have a hat for you, and Mark Lambden, please make yourself known. I have a hat